Story 1. After looking around and realizing everyone is gone, I would depart from despair, accepting that I now have time enough at last to read any and all books by myself. Then, after sorting my books, I would bend over to reach for one, and my glasses would fall to the ground and shatter, rendering me unable to read any of my beloved books. It's not fair. I blubber to myself as the camera zooms away. Story 2. Panic. Fix some breakfast. If the power is still on for a while before everything fails, I will download as many manuals as I can find for survival, electricity, and off-grid living. I need to find a car with ample space. I will visit the hospital and pharmacy for supplies in case I get hurt or sick. Then I will go to the gun shop, wilderness survival stores, grocery store, and library, followed by the city hall for records. I need to find a bunker to protect against fallout and fires. Story 3. Go find the part of the Statue of Liberty that is sticking out of the sand and yell, "You maniacs! You blew it up! Ah, damn you! Damn you all to hell!" Story 4. I have always been interested in learning how to fly a plane, but it seems irrelevant if I cannot land it at this point. Story 5. Everyone here saying they would be happy is not being truthful. That situation would be difficult, and I would miss my daughter, friends, and family. Story 6. Okay, first of all, I would panic. Then I would go to a nearby convenience store and grab snacks. No one is going to stop me, right? Also, not to be that girl, but you can bet I am breaking into Sephora and taking every skincare product I could not afford before. Story 7. My mornings are typically spent alone with my dog, so I would carry on as usual. It would take me a while to realize that nobody was around. When I began to notice a complete absence of vehicles and that no stores were open, I would probably freak out and drive around, beeping my horn to check if I was indeed the only human left. From there, I would try to give pets a chance to survive by breaking open houses and yards to release them. I would pick up a handful of young dogs that would be helpful with hunting when the available food ran out. I would find a vehicle and trailer capable of gathering what I need to survive. I would raid a camping and fishing store and find a shop that sold rifles to stock up on gear for acquiring meat in the long term. Then I would take myself to a location where I could reliably hunt and fish. From there, I would find a place set up with solar power and possibly gas bottles. I would amass seeds to grow simple crops and try to save some dairy cows and a lot of chickens, enough to maintain a breeding population. I would raid pharmacies for necessities and probably visit libraries to gather knowledge in areas where I lack information. I believe that fairly quickly dogs would become feral to survive, so I would fortify my chosen base against that. I think despair would eventually set in a world without humans, but I would give myself the best chance for long-term self-sufficiency early on. Story 8. I will stick to my morning routine as always, preparing coffee, then breakfast. This is how my day starts. This mental pattern keeps us safe from difficult situations. In an unconventional way, the human brain thinks and measures how to proceed. This routine will compel you to search for at least one other survivor who can continue. Although this is a very dark scenario, at least some will survive to face whatever challenges may arise. Story 9. Freak out, gather a vehicle full of food and water, and travel to find any other living people. After some time, I would most likely choose to end my life because living alone in the world would be so negative that it is better to do so on my terms. Story 10. I would grab a pen and paper and start planning my new life. I would go shopping for my new home and stop by the library to get books on horticulture and preservation. I would visit the auto store for fuel stabilizer. I would till the soil and plant my garden, find a truck, and gather groceries. I might as well enjoy fresh fruit and vegetables while I can. I need to stockpile non-perishables and ensure I have water for a while, but I will need to dig a latrine. I will get some potable water storage tanks and start filling them. I will acquire firearms and ammunition in case I am not the only one left. Additionally, it is uncertain what will happen with wildlife in the absence of humans, as wolves and bears could become a problem. I will stockpile batteries and set up a solar energy system. I do not care about much, but I need some music, so I will visit the store for CDs and records and perhaps find an instrument to learn to play. Story 11. Breakfast followed by morning coffee and a bathroom break. I live alone now, so it will take a while to notice. Story 12. I would find the nearest video store and walk through the beads to the adults-only section to see what is on the other side. Story 13. Quickly search for the location of nuclear power plants and check if anyone has already determined the safest location to be when all nuclear power plants go unattended. Print as much survival information as possible before power and internet services fail. Story 14. Panic. Race around grabbing as many non-perishable foods as possible. Gather tools, plenty of them. Break into armories to obtain firearms and ammunition for hunting, along with fishing gear. Collect a significant number of solar panels and bicycles. Acquire a considerable amount of nuclear protective gear and load everything onto a large ship, such as a tanker or cruise liner. Start the ship and head out into the Atlantic off the coast of Cornwall in the United Kingdom. Tow a smaller sailboat or electric boat. While doing this, I will break open as many farm gates and cattle pens as I see. Nuclear power stations will go into meltdown worldwide. I need to be far enough offshore to be safe while remaining able to return to land as required. Alternatively, find a light plane, take one last sightseeing tour, then crash it hard. A quick exit from this life, I suppose. Story 15. I assume they were transported to a different world and see me as a reality show. In less than an hour, they will see me lifeless in the most foolish way possible. Story 16. I'm gonna hit a grocery store, visit a record store, and maybe talk to that beautiful mannequin that has been looking at me. Perhaps tomorrow, though. I will make sure to grab some generators, set my house up nicely, have a trustworthy dog, but I'll probably sleep in the bathtub for security. Oh, and watch Shrek multiple times. Story 17. First, raid every Cold Stone creamery I can find and eat cake batter ice cream until I pass out. Then, after I wake up, I will try to figure out how to get to the French Riviera from Southern California without knowing how to fly a jetliner or navigate a cruise ship. Story 18. Take a truck with a large tank and manure pump, then find the largest farms near Moscow, fill the tank, drive to the Kremlin, unload, and repeat until the underground bunker and any area that can be sealed off are full. This is in case people suddenly reappear in the same spot they disappeared from. Story 19. Go to the police station. Find the keys to the evidence room where they are hiding all the valuable items. If everyone on Earth is gone, I don't know how long I will have, but I am going to enjoy it while I can. Story 20. Look up the nearest power plant and start learning how to run and maintain it, even if it is just getting power to a few critical areas or buildings. If that is not possible, consider getting solar panels connected to generators as well as acquiring power generators. Story 21. I am a bit annoyed, as my husband usually makes me coffee in the morning. If he is gone forever, that's one thing that will never happen again. Story 22. I would panic if I hurt myself. No one would be in the hospital to take care of me. The internet and power would soon disappear, and I would have to learn to hunt, fish, and grow vegetables. I would enjoy the silence and nature but would miss ice-cold drinks in the summer and heated floors in the winter. Story 23. Resources include gathering food, clothing, and gasoline. Stockpile these items to prepare for the next phase of growing crops and raising animals. Story 24. I check my phone frantically to see if anyone is online, then realize how silly that is since there is no one to run the internet. I would probably visit Sephora, though I am not going to lie. I have always wanted to try those expensive serums without spending a month's rent. Story 25. I would find a house with fireplaces and good soil. Then I would visit large retail stores to gather seeds and hand tools. Next, I would go to the bookstore or library to collect resources for living a self-sustaining lifestyle. I would also gather canning supplies. I would plant, protect my crops from wild animals, and learn to thrive. I would fish and hunt feral swine for protein. I think I would let the animals in zoos perish, as they would be invasive. I would keep 1 or 2 donkeys to assist on the farm. Story 26. Find a beautiful mansion on the beach. Enjoy the sunshine, the water, and the solitude. Drive a Ferrari and befriend many dogs. Story 27. After panicking and wondering where my family is, I realize that it will be the only thing I can think about. Story 28. I would probably start by finding the nearest pizza place and making sure it is still open. Just in case I need to do some serious celebrating or mourning. Also, I would try to figure out if I am now the ruler of Earth or just an accidental survivor of a global prank. Story 29. First, I would familiarize myself with the locations of nuclear power plants and mark them on a map. I would make an effort to stay approximately 100 miles away and upwind from them for the foreseeable future. I think there is about 4 to 5 days before the diesel generators stop running, leading to potential meltdowns. I would stay as far away as possible and hope the secondary containment does its job and that there are other safety measures I am not aware of. I would also gather drones and the means to charge them to assess if it is safe to remain where I am. I imagine fires will break out in cities if people suddenly vanish. Some buildings might have been left cooling with space heaters on, and fires can spread rapidly. Next, I would start rescuing dogs and cats that are trapped in houses, focusing on non-aggressive ones that get along with my small dog, creating my own little pack. I doubt many cats would want to join me and the dogs, but I could acquire a cat at my final destination. The cat distribution system will persist. I estimate I have about 3 to 5 days to rescue them, depending on the time of year. I would look for a walled compound or a large mansion to establish a base away from the city while monitoring the impact of a sudden disappearance of humans. During this time, I would gather supplies and plan my exit from the city if I haven't already left. I would also make sure to acquire some Geiger counters. Ideally, I could find a large off-roading recreational vehicle to navigate around abandoned cars on the interstate and transport a decent amount of supplies. I would only travel with what I need, as there will be abandoned cities in Idaho to explore for resources. My goal would likely be to reach the northwestern United States, as far away from nuclear sites and cities as possible. Idaho is an ideal location since undesirable people would be gone, and I could easily find a militant camp that is well stocked. After a couple of years there, I would assess if the Puget Sound area is viable and plan to settle there for retirement, keeping my Idaho base as a backup. Throughout all of this, I would feel somewhat sad about my wife and friends being gone, but it is a small price to pay for a world to myself. Story 30. I thought about it, and it is going to be difficult. Not only will my child be gone, but the rest of my family will be as well. Modern life, as I know it, will soon be gone too. Electricity will stop within days. Good luck finding gasoline for any cars to joyride. Even getting gasoline requires money for the machines we have here, as well as credit cards and their pins. I would likely go to the library, bookstores, and outdoor supply stores to gather everything I can about survival. I would get one of the bikes we have here and simply try to survive, with a lot of supplies in a house a bit outside a larger city. Story 31. Find an RV and some good companion animals. Load up on food, drinks, and party supplies, and take the longest road trip ever. Story 32. I guess I will start rescuing dogs from houses. I am now the dog food lady. My life is entirely devoted to trying to feed thousands of dogs. Story 33. Worry about everyone's pets and start going from house to feed and care for them. Realize that one person can only succeed in saving a limited number of pets, which may lead to feelings of deep depression. Story 34. 1. Check for signs of life. Try communication methods such as radio, phones, and the internet. If everything is silent, that is a bad sign or a very good one, depending on how introverted I feel. Assess supplies. If this is a full-blown apocalypse, I will raid the nearest store for essentials. If society has collapsed, currency is useless. I might as well trade charm for canned goods. Find transportation. Search for clues. Look for a mysterious broadcast, cryptic notes, or anomalies in the sky. Anything that hints at why everyone vanished. Decide my next move. Is it survival mode or a chaotic joyride through an empty world? The possibilities are endless. What about you? Are you leading the charge to rebuild civilization or taking the opportunity to embrace a post-apocalyptic lifestyle? Story 35. Stay away from any factories. If they are unmanaged, they could explode. I am not entirely familiar with how factories operate, but this is especially true for those related to power. Story 36. I am immediately sad that my girlfriend is gone, along with my family and friends. I will likely walk back to my parents' houses to pick up the dogs, then go to my girlfriend's house to take care of her dog. I will try to manage while living the rest of my life alone. It is peaceful, but also incredibly depressing. Imagine something good happens, and then you realize you don't have that person to share the good news with. Story 37. Probably check to see if the internet is still online and accessible. Make some coffee and casually plan my next move after a long nap to see if I'm just dreaming. Story 38. If all the nuclear reactors and chemical plants safely went dormant, I would celebrate and find a wilderness resort to settle down and develop a small farm. However, if these facilities were left unattended in real life, I assume the planet would soon become inhabitable, which would be terrible. Story 39. Are we talking about disappearing like Thanos? Like planes that were being flown are now going to crash? Or is everything okay and the vehicles aren't moving? Story 40. People struggled to handle being alone during COVID-19, as interactions were limited to video calls. Most individuals would not be content in that situation. They might become overwhelmed and lose their sense of self-preservation for at least 2 days until they learn to self-soothe. Eventually, the reality of being alone sets in, prompting the need for a plan for food, water, shelter, and access to communication devices in case someone reaches out. Story 41. Download the entire Wikipedia before the internet collapses. I will need all the knowledge I can get in a post-apocalyptic world. Story 42. Well, rather than the first thing, I'll go through my wake-up process. I work most days, but not until 2 or 3 p.m. I usually wake up around 11 a.m., not with my first alarm. That one just alerts me that I'm still alive, and I go back to sleep for about 15 to 30 minutes. Okay, now I'm awake. I go to the fridge, grab my 1 liter of water, and head back to bed. At this point, I usually listen to a podcast and play with my phone. It's a mix of scrolling through social media, memes, and sports updates. I check in with my various group chats. Everyone wakes up before me, and since my work is always on, there's always something happening while I'm not there, which I usually skip over. Depending on when everyone was active, maybe nothing seems out of the ordinary. I live alone, so the next hour or so is totally normal. I shower, pack my lunch, and leave in a hurry for work because I spent too much time doing nothing. My first indication that something is off would probably be a lack of traffic. That kind of happened today, to be honest. There weren't many cars on the road, and I literally had to check my calendar to see if it was a holiday. I park in the work lot, and when the shuttle bus doesn't show up, that's when I start to wonder. It would probably take me 2 missed bus runs before I walk up to security at the building, only to find they're not there. Holiday or not, these people are always working. At this point, I check my phone for news or try to contact some friends. After that, I'm probably just headed back home, maybe back to bed. I might play some video games since I rarely do otherwise. I'd spend the rest of the day doing nothing, similar to when I had food poisoning a few months ago, just cycling between being sick and sleeping. Next thing I knew, 2 days had gone by. After that, I'd probably try, though not very hard, to figure out what happened and if anyone else was around. After that, I'd likely just die of boredom eventually. Story 43. Go and grab some generators and ensure all the butcher shops and supermarkets have power. Visit the local bottle shop and perhaps head down to the bike shop for a ride. Have a barbecue at the beach with a big fire. Story 44. Have you ever seen the first episode of The Last Man on Earth? After searching the country for people, I would likely collect interesting pieces of history and memorabilia, and then inevitably have a breakdown reminiscent of Tandy. Story 45. I think I would just walk around at first. Not like a panic walk, more like checking to make sure it's not a prank. Then I would probably head into town, grab a bike or a car if any still work. I would go to the supermarket, not even for supplies yet, just to see what's there. Maybe I would write something in front of the store, like, "Is anyone else still here?" Even though that seems pointless. After that, I would probably try to get into the local library or school building. Not for anything deep, just because those places always made me feel strange when empty. I guess I would want to see what they feel like now. Eventually, I would have to think about food, but not immediately. Can goods last a long time, right? I think. I'm not sure how long water flows without people operating the systems. Night would be strange. Maybe I would sleep in a hotel or on a roof, just to see a skyline with no lights, if it still works. I don't really know what the long-term plan would be. Maybe I would try to get to the coast. I have never seen the ocean properly. Story 46. Start feeding all the pets and animals in my area by gathering food from all available stores. Get plenty of fresh seafood and produce for myself, focusing on items that may perish quickly. Store the remaining food in freezers. Story 47. Go back to bed to sleep, and then when I wake up, raid the pharmacy, bakery, and probably the jewelry store. I want to check the bakery in particular because I have worked there, and I want to see how much of this morning's cooking has been done to understand when people disappeared. Story 48. Crying, having a panic attack, and then uncertainty follows. It would mean my kids and partner are gone, along with all my family and friends. If this situation lasts for a while or becomes permanent, a lifetime of misery is approaching. Soon, electricity, internet, and other essential services may go offline. I will need to start scavenging for resources and food. It will not be an enjoyable time. Story 49. Immediately start gathering materials and scouting for my perfect seaside haven. I will need a solar system, mini digger, mini tractor, diesel generator, large fuel storage tanks, large water storage tanks, pumps, visit all the garden centers, and collect as much fertilizer and compost as possible. I will also go to supermarkets for medications, tinned goods, and dried goods. Additionally, I should acquire a couple of rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Some protective masks would be useful, along with torches, batteries, and water filters. I need to download anything from the internet that I might require before it stops working. It is likely that the electricity will go off quickly, and there may be some nuclear meltdowns as power stations are now unmanned. I will be planning for the worst. Story 50. I would go to the library and get a selection of books to read for January, February, and March. Then I would stumble on the steps and break my glasses. Story 51. Use my battery-operated shortwave radio to check if anyone else is out there. Then go over to my neighbor's house and check his amateur radio. Story 52. I would break into the local church to play the organ, then into the small tower where I could play the bells. After that, I'm not sure. Story 53. Log on to Reddit and notice that traffic hasn't decreased much. Start explicitly interacting with bots. Story 54. I cannot imagine my life without my dogs. As a species, humans are predominantly monogamous, and it is uncommon for males to stay to raise their young. If my wife and son were to suddenly disappear, I would feel lost without my family or purpose. I would be left to scavenge for my own survival. My dogs provide me with a reason to keep going. Their presence is what keeps me from contemplating ending my life. The thought of losing both my wife and son is unbearable. I recognize this may seem selfish, but they mean everything to me. What is the point of achieving anything if I cannot share those experiences with them? Story 55. Straight to the bank, get on their computers, and lower my mortgage interest rate to 4.25%. I will have my house paid off 3 years early. Story 56. I made it my mission to find as many cats as possible, but I am likely to run out of medication soon. Story 57. I will probably cry hysterically while searching for my wife and children, eventually giving up on everything. Story 58. I am going to the dispensary because it is going to take me a lot of marijuana to process all that. Then I will probably go to the nearest dealership and drive out of there in a nice sports car, but naked and high. Story 59. Go back to sleep. I don't have work today. We'll figure out the refrigerator situation after some good rest. Story 60. Break into random places out of sheer curiosity. Then I'd find a safe location to stay warm when all the infrastructure starts failing. Story 61. Walk. Pick a direction and go. Eat when I find food and rest at people's houses. Sounds like a dream. Hopefully, I won't be eaten by an animal along the way. I will, however, be like the character in The Walking Dead and find a baby tiger. I will raise it as a pet and she will be my best friend. There will be no zombies to harm her, and if she gets hungry enough, she'll put me at peace. I would find an old-school portable CD player, a bunch of batteries, and CDs to listen to along the way until all the batteries die. Story 62. Try calling the police and logging onto online forums to confirm I am truly the only person left in the world, and not just something strange in my city. Then I will probably have a panic attack. Story 63. I always think about this. Will all the animals vanish too? I would like to spend time with my cat, but if all the animals are still here, do I have to go from house to house saving and feeding everyone else's animals? Story 64. Pack up all my belongings, find a truck, drive it up north, and live in a cabin surrounded by nature. Read a lot of books and never wear clothes again. Story 65. I look back on my life and try to understand how everyone in the world was taken but me. I know I'm not the greatest person, but I'm not that bad. Am I? Story 66. Cry about it, and then walk around looking for all the pet dogs and cats who no longer have owners, trying to find as many as I can. Story 67. Celebrate. I will go to the local rental company and get a large van. I will start packing up my house and move north, probably toward Northern California. When I arrive, I will find the nicest house, claim it as mine, and install solar panels to build my solar farm. I will plant what I can, acquire some livestock, and obtain an electric vehicle that I can charge using solar power for trips to local farms. I will live happily ever after. Story 68. I am downloading the chat generative pre-trained transformer to my phone, the actual offline application programming interface. After I get my solar panels up and running to charge my phone, at least I will have a companion in the apocalypse. Story 69. I would likely search for my kids and wife until reality sets in, and then I would leave my physical body to search for them in the next life. Story 70. Well, hopefully all the nuclear reactors in the world have shut down failsafes. After every city has burned to the ground due to unattended fires, I would find an unburned house equipped with solar panels and a battery system to start learning how to hunt, fish, and farm. Story 71. Basically, just move into a shopping center. The shopping center is now my palace. It provides entertainment, shelter, food, and security. You even have surveillance pre-installed. Story 72. Definitely take my grandma's car and go get all of my favorite snacks and drinks from stores. By the way, I am 13, so I obviously don't know how to drive a car. Story 73. Barbecue bacon burger. Story 74. Try to find my family. Seek out answers and a solution to bring people back or understand why I am not with them. Run tests to determine if I am hallucinating, in a coma, in a simulation, or dead in purgatory. Am I the one who was kidnapped? It would make more sense that this is some kind of elaborate test or alien zoo. Get a van and gather maps. Print and download as much information related to survival and history as possible. Stock up on survival gear and medication, acquiring as many supplies as possible. Move out of the city, away from fire hazards, nuclear sites, and all potential military targets. There is a non-zero probability that any number of nuclear powers has some kind of dead man switch, and we may have a doomsday launch on a timer. It's dire. Story 75. Get drunk. After that, make plans for relocating to a more secure location. In my case, the nearby Air Force Base. Story 76. Knowing that I have the freedom to do whatever, such as walking outside confidently, driving an expensive car, or testing my limits, I would probably still procrastinate. Story 77. I am definitely going to enjoy a few beers and then start rescuing pets from homes immediately. That will be my life for the first few weeks, at least. Story 78. I have a significant backlog of Steam games from the last 20 years to catch up on. I also do not have to worry about working out at the gym. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.